Clemson Tiger fans, welcome back to another edition of the Clemson Sports Show. I'm your host, Joseph Hastings. Joining me, as always, is Matthew Connolly. And Matt, I've been looking forward to this episode, been looking forward to doing this for quite some time now, for the past couple of days. There's just been so much going on with college football and Clemson in general over these past few days. Obviously, you've got the Brent Venables and Oklahoma rumors. You've got some people claiming that Dabo Swinney is going to be in contention for that Oklahoma job. Man, those Sooner fans are going crazy with this news now. And then you've got Brian Kelly suddenly developing a Southern accent overnight. It's been hectic. I'm so excited to talk with you about it. But let's start off with Coach Venables and Oklahoma first. Obviously, Clemson's longtime defensive coordinator has ties to the Sooners, to that program. What are your overall thoughts on this situation that we're seeing transpire?
Yeah, first of all, it's just kind of business as usual for this time of year with the Clemson football program. I know this is your first year on the beat, but man, for the past few years, every year at this time, you have Brent Venables being mentioned for jobs and Tony Elliott being mentioned for jobs. So, in that ways, it's not a ton different than most years. Obviously, I think it's a little different just because of the connection Brent Venables has to Oklahoma, the connection he has to Bob Stoops, the connection he has to the AD, to boosters, to former players there. I mean, there's a lot of people in Oklahoma that I think would really like to see Brent Venables be the next head coach there. So definitely something we've been tracking. We've been monitoring the past few days. We've been posting updates regularly on ClemsonSports.com on our Tigers Den message board with what we're hearing. So yeah, it's been an interesting few days for sure. Like I said, but in some ways, it's just kind of how it is this time of year at Clemson.
So it feels like with this one here, if he's offered the position, he's likely going to take it, right? It's just it feels like there's too many connections there. It feels like it's his time, and it has felt like it's his time for the past couple of years. But you feel like he'll take it if he's offered the job, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I know that there are some people that think that Venables just wants to be an assistant for the rest of his career and that he would never be a head coach, but he's never really come out and said that. I mean, he's said very clearly why he stayed at Clemson, what he likes about the Clemson job, what he likes about being the defensive coordinator at Clemson. He obviously has less duties as far as boosters and media availabilities and all this kind of stuff than he would if he was a head coach. He still gets paid really well. He's in a great situation in Clemson. They love this area and the outdoors and all that kind of stuff that's perfect for him here. But at the same time, if you've listened to him closely over the years, he said several times that if the right job came along, he would take it. And, if this is a job that ends up being offered to him, if he does end up being the top candidate, I think he probably would take it.
So you've told me before that he's had multiple opportunities in the past. Can you kind of outline those opportunities? And do you personally feel like if this job doesn't come to fruition for him, he's likely to stay at Clemson because, it feels like such the perfect fit for him? It's going to be hard to find a better one in the coming years.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if he gets offered the job and turns it down, then, which I don't think will happen, but I guess it's still possible, then at that point, maybe he really does he's just at the point now where he doesn't want to be a head coach. If that doesn't happen, I think it probably is likely that he stays at Clemson through this year. But at the same time, you never know what's going to happen with these coaching carousels. I mean, we saw yesterday out of the blue, Bronco Mendenhall resigns at Virginia, steps out of Virginia. That's not a job we thought would come open. So, I mean, who knows, man? Like, it's still, we're not even at the offseason yet. It's still so early as far as kind of the coaching carousel. I don't think other big jobs are going to come open, but if they do, I wouldn't be surprised if he does, at least consider, depending on what the jobs are, if it is a big job. But yeah, and just talking about the past, he's had several opportunities in the past. I mean, he's a guy that's been mentioned any head coaching list you look at for the past 7-8 years. Most of them he's been on, and he's just stayed at Clemson. Last year there was interest from Auburn, and he opted to stay at Clemson then. So, like I said, it hasn't happened yet. I think because it hasn't happened yet, some people just assume that it's never going to happen. I'm not really of that belief, but yeah, we'll see what happens. The latest info we gathered was probably through the end of the weekend. By the end of the weekend, Clemson would have a pretty good idea of what was going to happen. So it's Friday now. A couple more days, maybe this will all be over. We'll have some closure and kind of know one way or the other what the plan is.
So we talked about it on a previous podcast, but what would the ramifications be if Venables does end up leaving Clemson? I've spoken with a couple of players, a couple of future Tigers, I should say. One of them being Jaden Lucas. He said that obviously he would love for him to stay. Venables is a defensive mastermind. He's so instrumental to Clemson's success. I know Dabo Swinney absolutely deserves all the praise that he gets, but it's hard to tell the Clemson story without telling the story of Venables and also Tony Elliott too. Can you just talk about what the impact would be if Venables does end up leaving?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a huge loss. There's no doubt about that. He's probably the best defensive coordinator in the country. He's won the Broyles Award as a top assistant. Every year that he's going to have one of the best defenses in the country. This year, Clemson's ranked number 2 in scoring defense, and that's despite having and that's in the nation, and that's despite having an offense that struggled at times and even scored for the other team at times, which counts against Clemson. So he's done an outstanding job here ever since he's been here. I think it's 4 of the past 5 years. His defense has been in the top 10 in scoring defense, just, every single year. No matter who he loses, if players transfer, if guys graduate, get drafted, whatever it is, no matter what talent's gone, he's going to spend that offseason putting together a defense that's going to give you a chance to compete for a national title. So it would be a huge loss. I think it would be a great move for Oklahoma, but it would be a huge loss for Clemson without a doubt.
So it's funny. I had a Florida friend of mine. I'm not going to say what this person's name is, but he's someone who's a Gator fan, and he's even thrown out some rumors that Venables would go to Florida, which is I'm going to make this clear, unsubstantiated. He was just messing around, but he was telling me he may have been joking or whatnot, but he said Clemson's a crumbling empire. If Venables leaves, it would be disastrous for the program. I think you and I would both agree that the loss of Venables would be huge, and it could be the difference between them winning a championship in the next 3 years or not. But like, you would agree in saying that Clemson will remain prevalent, especially in an ACC, in a conference that's so weak and is pretty much ripe for the picking for any team to come in next year and just dominate it. You feel like Clemson will still be fine as a program without Venables, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a chance that it takes a step back long term. Just when you think about the recruiting, the job he does defensively, obviously a lot of that will depend on who the next hire is, who Dabo Swinney brings in. But it's the Clemson program is not going to fall apart. It's still going to be right there near the top of the ACC. Clemson's going to keep bringing in talent. Dabo does a great job. He has a great culture. He has a great offensive staff still, great defensive staff other than Brent Venables. So it would maybe depend on who left and with Venables as well. There'd be a lot of moving parts there. But yeah, I don't expect Clemson, unless Dabo Swinney decides he's going to Oklahoma too. I don't expect Clemson to just fall apart and suddenly start having real issues.
So you talked about recruiting there. We have to talk about the visits that Venables has taken this week. I mentioned the whole watch situation. So that actually came as a result of Hayes High School, which is home to linebacker commit Jaron Koenig. They had tweeted out a photo, and I don't even know what the full situation was, but apparently Venables watched and in line with the time on the watch and in line with the timestamp on the tweet. So it was a whole crazy situation. Oklahoma fans ran wild with that one. But so Venables stopped by there on Tuesday. He also conducted an in-home visit with 5-star cornerback commit Toriano Pride. You reported that he made his way out to Alabama on Wednesday, a couple of days ago. So, he's been active on the trail, made his way to Tampa on Thursday, stopped by to see recent commit Wade Woodaz, and also extended a couple of offers. So he's still working hard on the trail. Is that a sign one way or the other, in your opinion, or is this just par for the course for Venables whenever he's in that coaching conversation?
Yeah, I don't think it's really a sign one way or the other. I mean, obviously, I'm sure Clemson fans would rather that he still be on the road recruiting than him be in Norman, Oklahoma right now. Yeah. So in that way, it's a good sign for Clemson. But at the same time, no, I think he's just going out and continuing to do his job. I mean, his job is to right now work for Clemson. He's getting paid very well to work for Clemson and to go around and recruit and continue to sell the program. So I don't read a ton into that right now. Most of the commits and people close to the commits that we've talked to have said that the Oklahoma situation hasn't really brought up some. Obviously, it's something that they're tracking, but they're not necessarily, having deep conversations with Venables about this and asking if he would take the job or anything like that. So it seems that, I think just for now he's continuing to work because he's getting employed by Clemson and that's his job. So he's continuing to go out, recruit for Clemson and recruit on behalf of Clemson.
So we don't know. We talked before about the ramifications of Venables leaving more long-term, but it could also have some short-term impacts in terms of this 2022 cycle. Clemson has put together a very strong class on defense, specifically in the secondary. Much props to what Mike Reed was able to do with the cornerbacks there that they've recruited. But, Dalen Everett, Jihad Campbell, Keon Sabb, Jaron Koenig, the list goes on and on. Sherrod Coble, just a lot of solid players on defense. And if Venables does end up leaving, we're 12 days away from signing day as of recording this podcast. Matt, it could get a little bad for someone like a Keon Sabb, who we know took a visit to Michigan recently. And, he recently stated on Instagram that he's all in, he's locked in with the Tigers. But, I personally think that it could have some short-term impacts in this 2022 cycle, though it remains to be seen.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure it would have an impact. At the same time, we're getting pretty close to signing day. Sure, these prospects signed in part because of Venables on the defensive side of the ball, but they also signed for their position coach for Dabo Swinney because they like the campus. It's not just one coach that necessarily is doing this. But I could definitely see some guys reconsider, possibly open up their recruitments and maybe even push back until the late signing period and give schools a look, maybe give Clemson another chance and whether it be an unofficial visit or whatever, and try to figure out, if this is for sure where they want to go. But that's a lot to speculate right now. And I don't want to throw out any particular names or anything of guys that might open up their recruitment. I know you mentioned Keon Sabb, who obviously had the Michigan visit. And so he's definitely one that would be worth tracking. But I don't think that, like the whole recruiting class would fall apart or anything like that. But there would definitely be guys who would consider it and maybe look elsewhere.
Yeah, and I spoke with Koenig's head coach, Tony Crow, after Dabo Swinney and Venables stopped by their school on Tuesday. And he told me that, there is a potential that Koenig would reevaluate his options if Venables does end up departing, but nothing is set in stone. I truly do believe when I've spoken with these prospects that they don't know what's going on. They don't know one way or the other. And personally, I don't think Venables even knows one way or the other either. He may have an inclination toward one way, but you still have to continue recruiting. Like you said, as Clemson's defensive coordinator, you have to be on the trail. We know that he's going to be making an important stop today. We reported a couple of days ago that he's going to be stopping at IMG Academy. That visit's still expected to take place. Obviously, home of Sabb, Campbell, Dalen Everett, and a couple of 2023 targets as well. So we'll be monitoring that situation. Matt, going over to Tony Elliott, his name hasn't been as popular, of course, as Venables because, the Oklahoma ties and you reported recently that Oklahoma and Venables could potentially be in that interview process. So what do you think about Elliott? What's the latest with his situation?
Yeah, there's not a ton going on with him that I've gathered. I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and he said that this cycle had been pretty quiet overall compared to past years, which is understandable in some ways, just because this was probably the worst Clemson's offense has looked in a while. At the same time, I really think Tony did a good job this year, and I wrote a column talking about him and the staff earlier today. But man, when you look at the improvement that they made as the year went along, when you had so many moving pieces coming in and out of the lineup. And I know I'm getting off topic a little bit, but so many moving pieces coming in and out of the lineup, inconsistent quarterback play, receivers always hurt, offensive line, musical chairs, all this kind of stuff to score at least 30 points in the final 5 games, to beat South Carolina handily, to score 48 against Wake Forest. I really felt like he was doing a good job and kind of the offense is finally starting to hit its groove a little bit. He did some good things with 2 back sets against South Carolina. Really found the strength of the team down the stretch, which was the running game, and leaned on that. So, if I was an athletic director, I would still be giving Tony Elliott a look. I still think he's a really good coach. I think he's really smart. I think he's ready to lead a program. Just all the leadership skills and everything else that he learned from Dabo Swinney, I feel like would translate. Building a program, building a culture. So I know it wasn't the year Clemson fans were hoping for offensively, but I still think he probably deserves a look. And we just haven't heard a ton. I mean, he told me a couple of weeks ago he talked to TCU. but that obviously didn't go anywhere. I had heard that he has not had conversations with Duke as of earlier this week, probably middle of the week or so. So still continuing to monitor his situation as well. But it doesn't sound like much is happening right now with Tony.
Yeah, and we're going to be keeping you all updated on ClemsonSports.com. Be sure to sign up for our 7-day free trial if you haven't already. Take advantage of what's going to be a really interesting time with the contact period. Coaches stopping by several schools. We reported on Wednesday and Thursday some major stops that they made at the homes of several 2023 targets. Obviously, they're not allowed to speak with junior prospects when they go to those schools, but it's mainly more for relationship building, letting those prospects know they're important for them. Richard Young, Arch Manning, those are a couple of the guys that they've already stopped by the schools of this week. So be sure to keep it locked in with that. Matt, let's have a little bit of fun. You know, we talked earlier in the episode about some of the craziness that's gone on with the coaching carousel, everything that's been happening this week. What's been, your favorite moment, the most funny moment for you that's happened so far?
Oh man, there's been a lot. Well, we'll stick with Clemson first. I guess when a couple of offensive coaches showed up alongside Mike Reed at Greenville High. So I think it was 3 assistants total, and Dabo Swinney were there. And because Brent Venables didn't go visit a couple of offensive commits, Twitter was convinced, Oklahoma Twitter was convinced that meant that he was for sure in Norman, Oklahoma, and that the deal was done. He was going to Oklahoma. So that was pretty funny. Brian Kelly suddenly developing a Southern accent, and like there were two. I love there was a tweet showing the way he said family 2 days ago at Notre Dame, and he went from family to I am LA, and just sorry that wasn't my best impersonation, but that was pretty hilarious. Just he suddenly developed a Southern twang in his voice. Man, it's been a fun few days for sure. Been a crazy few days, but yeah, those are a couple of my favorites. You have any favorites?
I mean, the watch situation with Venables. I mean, come on, that's out of pocket. That's crazy. We see with these coaching stops that they'll actually tweet out photos a day after, the coach actually visits. The school will tweet out a photo a day after. Luke Montgomery's head coach tweeted out a photo of Robbie Caldwell. Caldwell didn't stop by on Friday; he stopped by on Thursday. So, just because the watch doesn't line up with the timestamp doesn't mean anything, doesn't indicate anything. I also have to say the Brian Kelly situation. That's just hilarious, man. I saw that video. I'm like, oh, he's pulling a Rachel Dolezal. He's trying to be something that he isn't. It was hilarious. He tried pronouncing family a certain way. It didn't come off right. And it's funny. It's funny to us. We laughed about it. We had a great time on Twitter. But you have to wonder, does that kind of turn off some recruits? You want someone who's going to be genuine and authentic with you, and he seemed to be kind of putting on a persona. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem like he came across as kind of like truthful, like honest about himself during that speech that he made to the basketball crowd.
Yeah, I know exactly. I mean, that's what in a way it's funny, but in a way it's also like, dude, what are you doing? Like people know how you talk. I mean, I've sat in press conferences with him when Clemson's played, or Zoom calls last year when they were getting ready for the ACC championship game. Like, people have heard you talk before. People know that that's not what your voice sounds like. So I don't know, man, just weird. If I'm a recruit, I'm wondering, man, is this guy kind of fake, or like what is happening? So yeah, I didn't like that at all. I mean, it was really funny. There were a lot of funny tweets and videos and that kind of stuff going on along with it. But as a recruit, I would not like that at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that at all. You want your coach to be genuine with you. And that's the one thing. I've spoken with a lot of commits over these past few days who have conducted in-home visits or school visits with the coaches. And they always talk about the honesty that Dabo Swinney and his staff brings whenever they go and speak with these people in person, with their families, with the prospects themselves. That's something that you want, that truthfulness, you want that honesty, because at the end of the day, you're trusting the next 3 to 5 years of your college future with this coach, and then potentially your pro success lies in their hands as well. So you want to be able to trust them. Matt, let's switch on gears now to something that we we should have been talking about this. We should have been talking about Clemson in the ACC championship. We should be heading up to Charlotte. It's not happening. A couple close games didn't go Clemson's way, but it doesn't mean that we still can't talk about championship weekend coming up. Obviously, we got Oregon against Utah Friday night, which is tonight in the Pac-12 championship. I just want to get your thoughts. Who do you think will win that game? We'll go through some of the major conference championships down the line here.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to go Utah. I think I was impressed when these two teams played a couple of weeks with Utah. So that should be a fun game. Should be really fun. But, yeah, I'm excited for that one. I love a little Friday night football. We got spoiled last week with all the Thursday game, all the Friday games. I was wishing we were having more of that. But yeah, I'll take Utah.
Yeah, I'm going to take Utah too. I don't know. I don't trust Oregon's offense, man. It just really scares me in a big game like that with all the lights on them. I don't know if I can trust them to carry the load there. And also, like you said, Utah had a really impressive performance against them recently. Should we save the best for last, or should we go right into it? The SEC championship. I mean, this is
we can save that one.
We can save that one. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go into Michigan against Iowa then. This was supposed to be Ohio State representing the Big Ten East, but obviously that didn't happen. Who do you think wins this one?
Yeah, I think Michigan's defense is just too good, and I also think they'll be able to shove Iowa around some. I'm a Purdue guy, for those of you that don't know. So Purdue handled Iowa pretty easily earlier this year. Just haven't been impressed with Iowa in most of the big games. So yeah, I'll take Michigan in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan had a close loss against Michigan State. That was their only loss on the season, and then they go and do what they did against Ohio State. Now, would they have won the game if it was played in Columbus? I don't know about that. I thought the conditions were really in Michigan's favor. Ohio State just didn't seem comfortable in that game. But I am going to take Michigan, and it's a good story. Look, we were talking as recently as last year about Jim Harbaugh not being the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines going forward, for the turnaround that this program has had. I know Clemson fans may not like it because, Keon Sabb was obviously in attendance for the game. And, there were some concerns there that he may have been really attracted to what Michigan is building. But you have to give a lot of props to what Harbaugh's doing. Pittsburgh, Wake Forest. Who you got?
Oh, man, I think I'm going to go Pitt. And I think it's just, I saw both these teams play in person. They both obviously played two very different games. I think they both have really good – or against Clemson, they played two very different games. I think both have really good offenses, but I just trust Pitt's defense more. So I think Wake Forest maybe has a slightly better help around Hartman than Pitt has around Kenny Pickett. But I think Pitt's defense is just a little bit better. So I will take Pitt in a pretty close, pretty high-scoring game, but I think I trust Pitt more to get a stop than I do Wake Forest, which has one of the worst tackling defenses I can remember by the top 15, top 20 team.
Yeah, if we were talking about this game a couple of weeks ago before Wake Forest played Clemson, I probably may have been inclined to go with Wake Forest, but that game just that shocked me at how bad they were, how Clemson was able to rush on them, 333 yards on the ground. So yeah, I'm going to be taking Pittsburgh in this game too. And look, Pittsburgh beat Clemson 27-17. Clemson beat Wake Forest 48-27. Like you mentioned, Pittsburgh's defense is obviously better than Wake Forest defense. And I think their offenses can go toe-to-toe with what Sam Hartman and company will do. So I'm going to be taking Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game. I think it could be like 45-42. That's probably the game I'm most intrigued to see, because I love a good high-scoring game. I love seeing games that are going to be high-scoring. So, Matt.
Wait, you're more interested in that than Georgia, Alabama?
Oh, yeah. I love seeing fireworks.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and part of it is I'm not going to be able to see Georgia, Alabama, because I'm going to be covering Antonio Williams State Championship game. But I love seeing fireworks. People may disagree with that. I'm not a big defensive person. I'd rather see Wake Forest, North Carolina 55-52 than Clemson, Georgia 10-3. I may get some flack for that one, but that's just what I like seeing. I love seeing when there's high scoring games. And a game that probably may not be high scoring is going to be Oklahoma State against Baylor. Obviously, Oklahoma State beat Baylor earlier in the season. I'm going to be taking Oklahoma State in this one. I think they're going to make it to the college football playoffs. Matt, what say you?
I do too, but man, I don't think it's going to be easy. I think I think Baylor's really surprised people this year. I think it's a better team than people give them credit for. I mean, they've quietly gone 10-2, quietly are ranked in the top 10. So, yeah, I think I'll take Oklahoma State, but I don't think it'll be easy. And I also wouldn't be surprised after that crazy game last week between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State if they're able to somehow if Baylor's somehow able to surprise them, and maybe Oklahoma State still kind of has a little hangover effect from last week. That should be a fun one too to start the day.
That's a really good point, actually. I didn't think about that. Like all that momentum, all that hype, it could get to Oklahoma State just a little bit, whereas Baylor had played a, Texas Tech team that isn't phenomenal. They barely beat them 27-24, but we'll see what happens with that one. Let's get to Georgia, Alabama. That's the one that everyone's, really looking forward to watching. I may be in the minority when saying I don't think this game's going to be close. I'm gonna hold back. I'm gonna let you go first. I don't think this one's gonna be close, Matt.
So to be completely fair, I don't think it is either. Like I just think Georgia's just all around that much better of a team. I think that their defense is incredibly good. I think it'll slow down Bryce Young in that passing attack, and then offensively, I think that they, at times this year they've looked really explosive. Man, I don't know. I just have a weird feeling that this game will somehow end up being closer than people think. Just everyone I've heard all week has said Georgia's going to crush them and it's not going to be close. But this is still Alabama. This is still Nick Saban. They obviously still have plenty of talent. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if somehow we're sitting here Saturday and it's a lot closer than people think. But yeah, just looking at the game objectively, just kind of breaking it down, it really shouldn't be that close. But something tells me maybe it will be.
Yeah, I don't think this one's going to be close. I think it could get to a 21, 24-point win for Georgia. And we mentioned before, their fans have suffered long enough since 1980, last winning a national championship. I just feel like it's their year. And Alabama has just scared me, man. I know Florida wasn't the dumpster fire that they were toward the end of the season when Alabama played them early on. But you beat Florida by 2 points. It took 4 overtimes to beat Auburn by 2 points. Arkansas was a 7-point win. That one was close. They had a close game against LSU at home. It scared me, man. Like this Alabama team is Alabama in name only. They're not even what Alabama was 2-3 years ago. Forget the 2020 team. That it's gonna be hard to ever touch that team. That's like 2019 LSU Tigers. But I mean, this Alabama team just doesn't feel like it's gonna be competitive in this one. I think it could be 31-10, 34-10. Yeah, that's why I'm kind of looking forward to that Wake Forest Pitt game. And maybe because, I'm covering an ACC team now. I know those two teams just a little bit better. I know that it's going to be, a really strong game offensively. And I'm looking forward to that. I just don't think this game's going to be close, man.
Yeah, I mean, and I hear what you're saying. My only pushback would be that, like I said earlier, it's still Alabama. They still have Nick Saban. And then, like you're talking about how this isn't the same Alabama team and how much they struggled and all that kind of stuff. Well, they're still 11-1. It's not like they're limping in here with a 8-4 record in an SEC championship game. I mean, they still beat Alabama, or they still beat Tennessee by 3 or 4 touchdowns. Which I know,
come on, there's a difference between Tennessee and Georgia. There's a difference.
They still crushed Tennessee pretty. I know that game was close for a little bit, but they still.
What's Alabama's best win on the season?
Oh man, Ole Miss. I mean, they beat Ole Miss by 3 touchdowns. That's a top 10 Ole Miss team. That's pretty impressive. That Ole Miss game surprised me. I thought Ole Miss would be able to score some on them, but I don't know. I just think that Alabama's defense against Georgia's offense is not the huge mismatch that some people do. And maybe Alabama hits a couple of big plays in the passing game and hits some scores. Like I said, I'm not predicting. I still think Georgia wins. I'm not predicting Alabama to win, but I just got a sneaky feeling that it could be closer than everyone seems to think.
I'm going to check my imaginary Brent Venables watch here because it was 59 minutes and something seconds into the Iron Bowl, and they had scored 3 points. They had scored 3 points against Auburn. Are you kidding me? I mean, this Alabama team. It's one of those Alabama teams where I don't know what I'm going to get every single Saturday, and that's weird. Like with a Nick Saban-led Alabama team, usually you're expecting some level of consistency there. I just don't know what team am I going to get. Am I going to get a team that's going to hang 50 on Tennessee, like you mentioned, or a team that's going to barely squeak out a a quadruple overtime win over Auburn, which had been, limping toward the end of the finish line. I think it could be a good game. It could be a good game if Georgia's offense kind of like meets its match a little bit with Alabama's defense. Maybe it plays out a little bit more like Clemson, a little bit more of a high scoring type Clemson Georgia game. I don't know. I just don't think this one's going to be close. And I'm really interested in seeing what the comment section on our YouTube channel says after I say I'm looking forward to the Wake Forest Pitt game more than I am that one. So I may catch some flack, especially if that Georgia-Alabama game ends up being a lot closer.
Hey, I'm excited to see Wake Forest and Pitt too. I think that'll be a fun game. It's a cool story for either team. I mean,
yes, yeah.
Narduzzi tweeted yesterday that in 2018 he posted on the board, "We'll be back," and they're back and have a real chance to win it. Wake Forest has a chance to do what not many people thought they had a chance to do. And Sam Hartman in that offense, A.T. Perry, those receivers. It's a really cool story either way. So I'm definitely interested in that one, but I'm just a little more interested in the SEC and maybe the Big Ten too, honestly.
Yeah. For me, like the Big Ten definitely, because there's new storylines. That's kind of where the approach I'm taking with the Wake Forest Pitt game and my intrigue in it. Is that, look, we're going to see Alabama and Georgia potentially next year, the year after that. We're going to see this, and we've seen it before. We saw it in the 2018 National Championship game, which was a classic, an all-timer. But we're not going to see Wake Forest against Pitt in the ACC Championship, years down the line. This may be something we don't see for quite some time, with the two stories and how they're colliding. And it's not Florida State, it's not Clemson like it's been over the past 10 or so years. It really interests me. I love seeing some new faces into the mix. And I know neither of those teams are going to make it to the college football playoffs, but I think it's going to be a really good story and a good game, like you mentioned. Yeah,
we'll see. I'm really looking forward to that all the championship weekend. It's a little different this year, not being in Charlotte and getting ready to cover a game right now. But still should be a fun weekend, just sitting back and watching some games, which means, of course, that Brent Venables will go to Oklahoma and I won't be able to watch any games, and I'll be working all Saturday on Brent Venables OU stuff.
Well, we'll be in the same boat. I'm going to the Antonio Williams game. I'm going to miss. I'm really dreading it. I'm going to miss these championship games. Hopefully going to catch the night ones. But we would love to thank you all for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. If you stuck around to the very end, going to once again put in that plug, 7-day free trial, sign up. The early signing period starts December 15th. Matt's posting some great stuff about Brent Venables and Oklahoma, updates that he's hearing. You don't want to miss on it. Matt, before we sign off, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, not really. Just like you said, just continue to check out ClemsonSports.com. You've done a great job keeping up with all the recruiting happenings this week. There's a lot going on the road. It's a perfect time to try a free 7-day trial. See what you think. If you enjoy our content, you enjoy our work, our info, stick around. And if not, we appreciate you giving us a try and move on. But really think you'll stick around. We really think you'll enjoy it. We're providing, like you said, lots of coaching search updates, recruiting updates, really everything you need if you're a Clemson fan. So come give us a try.
Catch y'all later.